What if the most important discovery in human history didn't happen on another planet, inside a secret underground lab, or in a distant galaxy, but in orbit above our own heads, hidden in plain sight for decades? Something happened inside the Goldstone Deep Space Communications Complex that forced scientists to question everything they believed about space, time, and humanity's place in the universe. What began as a routine orbital scan quickly became the kind of event that changes civilization forever. According to the data, it all started with a forgotten silver balloon launched during the Cold War. Deep in the Mojave Desert, inside one of the most secure tracking facilities on Earth, senior orbital analyst Sarah Mitchell sat alone monitoring her sector. It was supposed to be another quiet shift. Outside, desert winds pushed against the massive satellite dishes scattered across the dark landscape. Inside, the atmosphere was calm, clinical, and mathematical. Screens glowed softly across the control room, while streams of telemetry moved in steady patterns that every analyst knew by heart. Sarah sipped black coffee as she performed a standard LiDAR sweep, tracking inactive satellites, fragments of debris, and the drifting remains of early space missions long forgotten by the world. Then, every alarm in the building activated at once. Not one, not two, but every single system. The room exploded with warning signals so violent and synchronized that technicians initially believed the network itself had suffered a catastrophic failure. But the data said something far worse. A thermal bloom had appeared in a region of space where temperatures should have remained near absolute zero. Sarah focused on the anomaly immediately. One object stood at the center of the disturbance, a 30-meter silver sphere officially classified decades ago as obsolete orbital debris, known as Pagios. Most people have never heard of it. Decades ago, Pagios was launched as part of early satellite communication experiments during the height of the space race. To history books, it was little more than a giant reflective balloon drifting silently above Earth. But according to the telemetry flooding Goldstone systems that night, Pagios was no longer behaving like a dead satellite. Sarah initiated an active pulse scan. Normally, signals bounce harmlessly off inactive objects. But this time, the pulse vanished completely. The signal was absorbed, then re-emitted as a coherent gravitational waveform. Not radio waves, not thermal interference, but gravitational distortion. That was the moment fear entered the room. Before anyone could process the first anomaly, the second arrived. The silver sphere suddenly changed velocity without applying measurable thrust, violating every accepted model of inertia. Engineers watched in disbelief as the object unfolded structures hidden beneath its reflective shell. Dimensions expanded where no dimensions should exist. According to the instruments, the surface geometry itself appeared to increase beyond three-dimensional space. Sarah's hand shook violently. Her coffee mug slipped from her grip and shattered across the polished floor, spraying dark, liquid, and ceramic fragments in every direction. She never looked down. Nobody did. Every eye remained fixed on the screens because the impossible was still unfolding in real time. The silver surface of Pagios was no longer reflecting sunlight. It was resonating. Patterns emerged across the telemetry like musical harmonics moving through space-time itself. Frequencies aligned with mathematical structures tied to prime numbers, Fibonacci ratios, and quantum resonance models that had only existed in theoretical physics papers. The object wasn't acting like debris anymore. It was behaving like a relay system, something ancient, something newly activated. Then came the realization that truly terrified the Pentagon. This wasn't a random anomaly. Someone or something had repurposed humanity's first orbital experiments into a functioning technological system. Emergency briefings began immediately. Inside classified channels, analysts discussed concepts once dismissed as science fiction. The object's electromagnetic profile had changed completely. Materials once identified as aluminum and mylar were now behaving like engineered quantum matter. Some physicists proposed that Pagios was generating a localized vacuum field by expelling Earth's magnetic influence through a macroscopic application of the Meissner effect. Others believed the satellite had become a kind of dimensional anchor point interacting directly with the structure of space-time. But Sarah noticed something even stranger hidden inside the secondary telemetry. The sphere had become transparent to ordinary light while remaining visible through dark matter mapping systems. It was scanning Earth. For decades, humanity believed Pagios was only a silent relic drifting above us. But the new data suggested something deeply unsettling. Every radio signal, radar transmission, and electromagnetic pulse transmitted by humanity over the last 6 decades may have interacted with that reflective surface. If true, Pagios hadn't been a passive object at all. It had been recording us, watching us, cataloging humanity's technological evolution since the Cold War. And now, for reasons nobody understood, it had awakened. The deeper scientists looked, the worse the implications became. Data from space telescopes showed microscopic vibrations across the sphere's surface occurring at scales approaching the Planck length itself. In simple terms, Pagios appeared to be tuning directly into the quantum fabric of reality. Not metaphorically, but literally. The universe suddenly looked less like empty space and more like a connected system waiting for activation. Then the signal began. A repeating transmission emerged from the sphere using sequences built around prime numbers and Fibonacci structures. At first, analysts assumed it was random noise. But hidden inside the patterns was something unmistakable. The structure mirrored the famous Arecibo message humanity once sent toward the stars decades ago. Except this version was different. Embedded within the sequence were modifications tied to human DNA models. The message was simple: we have been watching. And in that moment, humanity realized the silver balloon floating silently above Earth may never have been ours at all. The moment the transmission ended, silence filled the control room at Goldstone. Not the calm silence of exhausted engineers or late-night analysts running calculations, but the kind of silence that appears when every person in the room realizes the world they understood no longer exists. Sarah stood frozen beside the shattered remains of her coffee mug, staring at the endless stream of impossible data pouring across her terminal. Outside, the desert wind continued to move across the Mojave exactly as it always had. But inside that facility, reality itself suddenly felt unstable. Within minutes, encrypted communications connected Goldstone to NASA headquarters, the Pentagon, and deep space monitoring stations around the world. The official explanation circulating through internal channels described the anomaly as a highly unusual orbital resonance event. But privately, the language was very different. Some analysts called it a technological awakening, while others described it as first contact hidden behind physics. One classified briefing used a phrase that spread through the facility faster than any alarm. Humanity is witnessing a live audit of space-time. As scientists continued examining Pagios, the situation escalated dramatically. The object's internal dimensions no longer matched its external size. According to the telemetry, the 30-meter sphere contained spatial volumes that should have been physically impossible. The space inside the object appeared larger than the space outside it. Einstein's equations predicted extreme gravitational environments could distort time and geometry, but nothing like this had ever been observed on such a small scale. Then the clock started drifting. Atomic timing systems connected to the Deep Space Network began losing synchronization near every sensor locked onto Pagios. The discrepancy started small, only fractions of a second, but it accelerated rapidly. Scientists soon confirmed localized time dilation surrounding the satellite. Time itself was moving differently around the object. Sarah listened as one relativistic physicist attempted to explain the phenomenon during a secure conference feed. According to the calculations, Pagios was generating a controlled gravitational well using rotational space-time dynamics similar to the Kerr metric, the same mathematical framework associated with rotating black holes. But there was one terrifying difference. Black holes require singularities, whereas Pagios did not. Something had created frame-dragging effects without collapse. The implications were staggering. If the calculations were correct, the silver sphere wasn't just transmitting signals, it was bending space-time intentionally. The surface acted like a stabilized boundary between two different rates of time flow. 1 hour inside the field surrounding Pagios could equal years for observers outside it. Some simulations projected even worse possibilities as the resonance increased. 7 years, 70 years, eventually centuries. Humanity was watching a machine operate in deep time. The room grew colder as more data arrived. Sensors revealed that neutrinos passing through the region around Pagos were changing velocity. Normally, neutrinos pass through matter almost completely unaffected, with billions moving through the human body every second without interaction. But near the sphere, those ghost particles accelerated sharply, as if responding to hidden energy structures surrounding the object. Nobody in the room could explain it. Theories spread rapidly through the scientific teams. Some believed Pagos had become a quantum archive, while others argued it was functioning as a relay node connected to something far beyond Earth. But one theory began gaining attention among the senior physicists because it aligned too perfectly with the evidence, the holographic principle. For decades, physicists proposed that all information within a three-dimensional space could be encoded on a lower dimensional surface. In simple terms, reality itself might behave like information stored on boundaries. If that principle was true, then the reflective skin of Pagos could theoretically store enormous quantities of data. Suddenly, the satellite's original design no longer looked primitive. It looked intentional. The realization hit Sarah harder than anything else that night. For decades, humanity had bounced signals off that silver surface. Military transmissions, satellite communications, radar sweeps, television broadcasts, and scientific experiments. Human history itself had continuously interacted with Pagos since the height of the Cold War. What if it had all been collected? What if the satellite wasn't merely observing humanity, but preserving it? As tension spread through the facility, another anomaly emerged. Gamma-ray emissions appeared along the outer edge of the sphere, pulsing in rhythmic intervals that matched harmonic mathematical structures found in string theory models. It looked less like random radiation and more like music translated into physics. The symphony of strings. That phrase began appearing in classified reports shortly before dawn. The pulses continued increasing in intensity, with every sequence carrying layered mathematical information hidden inside the frequencies. Analysts discovered repeating constants tied to geometry, gravitational mechanics, and biological structures. It was as though the signal was teaching humanity how to read it step by step. Then came the most disturbing discovery yet. Embedded inside the transmission patterns were maps of human genetic sequences with subtle modifications highlighted across the code. These weren't instructions exactly, but suggestions, optimizations, and repairs. The message was no longer just communication, it was guidance. Inside secure military channels, panic slowly replaced curiosity. If Pagos had truly been recording humanity for decades, then whoever controlled it understood human civilization better than humanity understood itself. Every conflict, every invention, and every broadcast into orbit were all potentially stored inside a system now unfolding above Earth. But amid the fear, another possibility emerged. What if this wasn't an invasion? What if humanity was simply being evaluated? The data suggested an intelligence far beyond current human capability, yet there were no signs of aggression, no weapons, and no attacks. Only observation, synchronization, and transmission. Some researchers proposed that advanced civilizations might preserve emerging species rather than destroy them. Others believed Pagos had acted as a developmental checkpoint, silently waiting until humanity reached a technological threshold capable of recognizing what it truly was. According to the accelerating anomalies surrounding the sphere, that threshold had finally been crossed. Suddenly, every monitor in the Goldstone control room flashed white simultaneously. Then Pagos began to contract, not physically, but spatially. The dimensions surrounding the object folded inward while gravitational intensity increased beyond safe observational limits. Scientists watched helplessly as the silver sphere compressed light itself into spiraling waves around its surface. The effect resembled a miniature event horizon forming an orbit above Earth. Sarah could barely breathe as the latest telemetry arrived. The object was preparing to leave, and if the calculations were right, humanity had only minutes left before the gateway fully opened. As Pagios continued collapsing inward, the atmosphere inside Goldstone shifted from scientific investigation to controlled panic. Every major observatory connected to the Deep Space Network was now feeding live telemetry into the Mojave facility. Scientists who had spent entire careers studying gravity, quantum mechanics, and orbital physics suddenly found themselves staring at data that made modern science look incomplete. The silver sphere hanging silently above Earth was no longer behaving like a satellite. It was behaving like an active doorway. The contraction intensified. The surface of Pagios stopped reflecting sunlight entirely. Instead, it absorbed surrounding light into a rippling distortion that spread across the object like liquid metal. Cameras struggled to focus on it because the geometry itself appeared unstable. Angles shifted between frames, and distances changed without movement. One analyst described it as watching three-dimensional space fail in real time. Then the gravitational readings spiked. Around the object, space-time curvature increased so rapidly that satellites several hundred kilometers away experienced measurable orbital disturbances. Small corrections had to be issued immediately to prevent collision risks. The real fear came from what scientists discovered inside the distortion field itself. Time near Pagios was accelerating unevenly, not just slowing or speeding up consistently, but fragmenting into layers. Different regions around the object appeared to operate at separate temporal rates simultaneously. According to one simulation, an observer standing near the center of the field could theoretically witness centuries passing outside within a matter of hours. Humanity wasn't just observing advanced technology anymore. It was witnessing direct engineering of time. Sarah watched as equations flooded across her terminal faster than she could process them. The models pointed toward something terrifyingly advanced: controlled negative energy densities, the same theoretical requirement physicists believed would be necessary to stabilize wormholes and manipulate space-time on demand. For decades, humanity treated those ideas like mathematical fantasies. Now one of them was unfolding above Earth inside a forgotten silver balloon. The Pentagon ordered immediate containment protocols around all orbital communications. Military satellites shifted position, and radar systems focused entirely on Pagios, but none of it mattered. Whatever intelligence controlled the object operated on a level far beyond anything humanity possessed. Every attempt to scan deeper into the field resulted in corrupted data streams and recursive signal echoes that bounced back altered. It was almost as if the system was choosing what humanity was allowed to see. Then the next transmission arrived. Unlike the earlier Fibonacci patterns, this signal was different, slower and deliberate. The structure resembled language hidden inside harmonics. Artificial intelligence systems attempted translation, but the results became increasingly disturbing. The message appeared less like communication and more like a historical record. It described humanity, not in words, but in sequences. Nuclear detonations appeared as gravitational signatures, radio broadcasts formed electromagnetic fingerprints, and global internet activity emerged as expanding quantum noise patterns spreading outward from Earth over decades. Humanity's entire technological history had been mapped through energy interactions with Pagios. The realization shook everyone inside Goldstone. For decades, the silver sphere had not only observed civilization, but it had archived it in extraordinary detail. Then, one phrase repeated across every translation attempt: synchronization phase complete. Nobody knew exactly what it meant, but moments later, they found out. The object's outer shell separated into geometric layers that unfolded like petals around a hidden center. Inside the structure sat a dark region that cameras could not properly capture. Not black, but empty, a volume of space where visual information simply ceased to exist. Around that void, energy moved in spiraling waves resembling luminous strings vibrating through open space. The symphony of strings had become visible. Several physicists immediately connected the phenomenon to higher dimensional models in string theory. If reality consisted of vibrating fundamental structures beneath ordinary matter, then Pagios appeared capable of interacting with those structures directly. The object wasn't moving through space conventionally. It was manipulating the underlying framework that created space in the first place. According to the telemetry, the process was accelerating. Outside the facility, reports began spreading globally. Amateur astronomers observed unusual light distortions in the night sky. Airline pilots reported brief navigation anomalies, power grids experienced unexplained fluctuations, and social media exploded with theories ranging from alien contact to secret government experiments. Inside Goldstone, nobody had time to care about public reaction because the situation had become existential. Researchers in Antarctica confirmed a dramatic shift in neutrino behavior worldwide. Ghost particles passing through Earth suddenly aligned toward the coordinates of Pagios, as if drawn by gravitational resonance. The effect resembled matter itself responding to a cosmic beacon. Sarah listened carefully as one senior astrophysicist made a statement that silenced the room. If this system is truly operating through higher dimensional mechanics, then Pagios may not be opening a doorway through space. It may be opening one through reality. The implications were horrifying. Humanity had always imagined advanced civilizations traveling between stars using faster ships, exotic engines, or cryogenic sleep. But Pagios suggested something completely different. Truly advanced intelligence might not travel across the universe at all. It might interact directly with the structure beneath the universe, bypassing distance entirely. The gateway expanding around the sphere wasn't just transportation. It was access. And something on the other side appeared ready to receive it. As energy levels rose, the temporal distortion intensified further. Simulations now projected impossible outcomes, where 1 hour inside the field could equal hundreds of years outside. To whatever intelligence operated within that space-time bubble, human civilization may already appear as a rapidly flickering sequence of events. Wars beginning and ending in seconds, generations rising and vanishing instantly, and entire centuries collapsing into brief flashes of light. Humanity suddenly understood how insignificant its perception of time truly was. Then Sarah noticed something hidden inside the newest data stream, a countdown. It was not numerical, but harmonic. The resonance frequencies emitted by Pagios were narrowing toward a final convergence point. Every pulse aligned more perfectly than the last, building toward what physicists described as critical synchronization. The countdown hidden inside the harmonic signals soon became impossible to ignore. Every observatory connected to the deep space network confirmed the same terrifying conclusion. Pagios was approaching a final synchronization point, and whatever process had begun inside the silver sphere was nearing completion. Inside Goldstone, scientists no longer debated whether they were witnessing advanced intelligence. The only question left was what that intelligence intended to do next. The control room lights dimmed briefly as another surge passed through the network. Then the impossible happened. For exactly 2 seconds, every live camera pointed at Pagios lost visual input completely. Not static, nor interference. The object simply vanished from observable space while gravitational readings remained active. It was still there physically, but reality itself seemed unable to render it. When the image returned, the sphere looked different, larger, not in measurable size, but in presence. The empty region at its center had expanded into what analysts described as a stable dimensional cavity. Around it, luminous strands of energy twisted through space like glowing threads woven into invisible geometry. The effect resembled a tear opening inside the night sky. Sarah stared at the telemetry while her pulse hammered in her ears. Every instinct told her she was looking at something no human being was ever meant to witness directly, yet she couldn't look away. None of them could. Then a new signal entered the network. Unlike previous transmissions, this one bypassed standard communication channels entirely, appearing simultaneously across satellites, observatories, military systems, and civilian frequencies around the world. Even disconnected systems recorded traces of it. The message carried no sound, yet people described feeling it more than hearing it, as though the signal interacted directly with perception itself. For a moment, the entire planet seemed connected to the same impossible event. The transmission contained no language humans recognized. Instead, it arrived as layered mathematical structures unfolding into visual patterns. Fractal geometries, prime number chains, and gravitational wave harmonics. But buried inside those patterns was something unmistakably intentional, an invitation. It was not hostile nor emotional, but simply precise. Scientists worked desperately to decode the meaning while the gateway continued stabilizing above Earth. Theories spread rapidly through Goldstone. Some believed humanity was being contacted by a civilization operating outside ordinary space-time, while others proposed something even stranger: that Pagios itself had become intelligent through interaction with quantum systems beyond human understanding. If this mind-bending revelation left you questioning our place in the universe, hit the subscribe button right now, tap the notification bell, drop a like, and comment below with your thoughts on what humanity's next move should be.